This is Arise America.
Well, Taiwan was also on the agenda, with President Biden vowing the US would stage a military intervention if China were to invade. It's one of the most forceful statements made by a US leader in support of Taiwan in decades. Biden says the US supports the One China policy, but that does not mean that China has the jurisdiction to go in and use force to take over Taiwan. But the president said he doesn't expect this to happen. China says it has a resolute opposition in the US leader's remarks.
中方对美方的言论表示强烈不满和坚决反对。
China expressed strong dissatisfaction and resolute opposition to the US remarks. Taiwan is an inalienable part of Chinese territory. The Taiwan issue is purely an internal affair of China and cannot be interfered with by any external forces. China has no room for compromise or concessions on issues involving China's core interests such as sovereignty and territorial integrity. No one should underestimate the strong determination, firm will and strong ability of the Chinese people to defend national sovereignty and territorial integrity. We urge the US side to effectively adhere to the One China principle and the provisions of the 3 US-China joint communiques. Abide by the important commitments to not supporting Taiwan independence, be cautious with its words and actions on the Taiwan issue, and not send any wrong signals to the separatist forces of Taiwan independence, so as to avoid serious damage to the situation in the Taiwan Strait and China-US relations. China will take firm action to safeguard its sovereignty and security interests, and we will do what we say.
维护自身主权和安全利益，我们说到做到。
Part of the trip, President Biden announced the countries that are joining the new Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. It has 13 members, including the US, that account for 40% of global gross domestic product. It's a replacement for the Trans-Pacific Partnership that Donald Trump pulled out the US out of in 2017. Well, let's cross live now to Washington, D.C., where we're joined by Arise US correspondent Eric Ham. Eric, good to see you as always. Let's face it, President Biden wasted no time in sending a clear message to China over Taiwan, but this does appear to be quite a big U-turn in long-standing US policy.
I think that's an understatement, Dan. In fact, we have been watching to see what provocations might come from China or North Korea during the president's visit to the Indo-Pacific. And we never thought that it would actually be President Biden who would be making the provocative statements that would rile up those opponents of the United States. And so the president made this comment. And this is not the first time that we know that President Biden has made such comments regarding Taiwan and China. And these comments certainly don't go over well in China. And in fact, we know that today during the press briefing that was held at the Pentagon that featured the Secretary of Defense as well as the Joint Chairman, the Joint Chief of Staff, they both addressed this issue and said that there is a one China policy that the United States follows. The United States will continue to follow that policy. And everyone is looking to see if there is some new plan or if the United States is actually putting itself on a war footing in the event that China decides to invade or to try to take Taiwan by force. And right now, what we continue to see, while many within the president's travel team have certainly attempted to try to put this genie back in the bottle, it is not clear at this time that there is an actual change in policy that the United States is prepared to actually go to war with China at this time. Now, we do know President Biden has made clear that the United States will defend China, but right now we are not seeing policy being shaped or addressed in any way that suggests that the United States is preparing for a war with China. We also know that the president is certainly attempting to shore up those key relationships in the region, which is, of course, why he was there. And we saw that today with the president announcing this new economic plan that will involve 13 countries and also includes about 40% of the total global economy. But we also know that many of these countries that are part of this framework are also part of that TPP that the United States pulled out of that also includes China. So what we're seeing here is that even though the United States is attempting to try to buttress the economic global landscape, given a rising economic China, we're still seeing that right now there's a framework, there's a plan, but not really much in terms of how it will operate minus China. And so clearly what we're seeing here is a president who is focusing on China, but right now the United States is not necessarily moving in a direction where it is looking for a major confrontation with China.
Let's just return back to the Taiwan subject. The president said that he didn't believe that China would invade anytime soon. I do remember shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine that you basically reported on evidence, found that there was plans of China was planning at one point to invade Taiwan near the Olympics. Do you think the issue in Ukraine and how the US has defended and the West has defended Ukraine in terms of supplying and not boots on the ground, do you think that's why China is potentially staying off any form of invasion at this point?
You know, that's a really good question. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think in the lead up to the president's trip to the Indo-Pacific, and now that the president is in the region, I think that has not gotten as much attention as perhaps it should have, because many of our sources in the aftermath of the Russian invasion in Ukraine, we were told by many sources inside the White House and the Pentagon and other intelligence agencies that they believe that China actually did a double take and decided that they would not actually invade Taiwan because of how quickly the world actually came to the rescue or came to the side of Ukraine, but also more importantly, how the United States and the European Union unified so quickly, as well as NATO. And so there was growing concern that if in fact China did the same thing, given how the United States and other partners put together economic sanctions that were simply crippling to Russia's economy, there was growing concern that China would also face the same fate if, in fact, it did decide to unilaterally invade Taiwan. And so that was one of the reasons why China decided to go in a different direction. Remember, in the lead up to the war, we knew of a series of provocative actions that were taken by Chinese military invading Taiwan airspace. And there was growing concern that there were preparations for some type of invasion or aggressive action by China. But after the invasion by Russia in Ukraine, that largely dissipated. And many believe it was because of how the United States and the rest of the world responded to Russia's aggression in Ukraine.
Just quickly before you go, what else can we expect from President Biden's visit while he's in Japan?
You know, I think one thing that we have not gotten into is that we know that President Biden, in that lead up to that meeting with the Quad Nations, is going to meet directly with the Prime Minister of India. We know that India has remained neutral in the Ukraine-Russia standoff. And while the United States has publicly not said anything, we do know that they wish to see India be more aggressive on Russia. And so we expect to see conversations that will take place as that Quad meeting gets underway tomorrow.
Well, Eric, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed for your analysis this evening. Eric Hammer, Rise US correspondent.
This is Arise America.